Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to have you all online today. And of course, many thanks to Groupe Mutuel and for PFL Innovation Park to make this possible. I'd just like to start by giving you an overview of what we're going to be doing today, as well as to share the plans for this focus group going forward. Obviously, for you also to provide feedback for us to better understand your needs so we can eventually tailor the program. After that, we're going to have a little talk about some of the key therapy areas here, menopause and incontinence, and our period health expert will be joining us next time, and we'll focus more on that indication in the next session. And then we really like to collect the common understanding of everybody here and get the group's knowledge and have two breakout sessions. One is about understanding the therapy area that we are working on or interested in, whether it's menopause, incontinence, or period health. We're going to be splitting you into breakout sessions. There's a little template to help the discussion, and my colleagues will help you out there. And then we're going to do a second one on innovation pain points. And each time when we come back, we're going to ask for volunteers to present what they have found. And we'll close with a discussion and summary learnings. And there's plenty of opportunities to hear from the audience. So feel free to participate and contribute. Just wanted to say, have an opportunity to introduce the people that are helping out today. I'm the first person on the slide, obviously. I'm also associated with Swiss Biotech Association, and I've been working in life sciences, I guess, all my life, with an expertise mixed between medtech and biotech. And Nicolas, if you could introduce yourself for those who don't already know you.
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Martha. Yeah, I'm Nicolas Leyault, Chief Innovation Officer at Groupe Mutuel, so also co-founder of this Tech Forever program with EPFL Innovation Park. And for us, it's quite important to aim at 50% of the population. And the focus groups that you are involved in today is another extension of this program, which is really to go into more practicalities of what can we do for real in a specific domain. And today the domain is menopause and period health, but we have 4 different focus groups, and the objective is to go deeper on the topic and to find solutions, identify pain points, and to have the people to talk together. That's the objective, and Martha is making a great job in this domain.
Thank you. Let's see. And we have 2 gentlemen joining us. Rick and Michael, may I ask you to introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. Shall I go first, Michael?
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
Okay, my name's Rick Leach. I'm the co-founder and CEO of an organization called Callisto Life Science Partners. We're a commercialization partner for early stage and growth stage companies in medical device, health tech, and life sciences. And essentially what we do is help these organizations in 3 key areas. So we say insight, strategy, and action. So insight is we're often asked to help gather market intelligence, market data, help companies understand the market that they're playing in or want to play in. Secondly, creating a strategy that is best suited to optimize that opportunity. And thirdly, helping them turn that strategy into action, whether it's finding strategic partners, whether it's finding and building a distribution channel. Those are the areas where we help these early stage companies, and we're delighted to be here today helping out.
And Rick and I and Michael have worked together on many occasions in the past 10 years. So just here and there, we meet and we do things together. Michael.
So hi, everybody. My name is Michael O'Regan. And first of all, I'd like to say that I'm very honored to be part of this group, and thanks to the organizers for the invitation to participate. I'm Irish, did all my education in Ireland, but then moved to continental Europe, and I've lived in France and Italy for the past 35 years. Would you believe it? So I currently actually a senior consultant with Callisto Life Science Partners with Rick and Marta. And this is after spending 30 years in the medtech, biotech, and pharmaceutical industry in positions ranging from R&D right up to commercial sales management and general management. So, you know, through the years, I've worked for 6 or 7 different companies, got a pretty good feel for the market and how to gauge it. And so, as I said, very excited to be part of this project today.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So we move straight on to, I think a quick Mentimeter to hear more about you. And I hand over to Barbara.
Sure.
Thank you, Barbara. So you'll give the instructions, right? You write Menti on your browser and use the code that's shown there. Is that correct, Barbara?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And you go straight to menti.com. So it's 71454331. And moderators can also provide an answer. So which city are you calling from? Okay, Berlin, UK, I knew that.
Marta, could you give us the code again, please?
Oh, it's on the screen at the top, 71454331, sorry. We only, maybe we're not much more than we have 8 answers. Does anybody else want to answer? Okay, Boston. Glad you could make it. Minneapolis, yeah, the Medtronic City, and Boston Scientific City, I think. Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next one. Your passion in life. Making an impact, travel, good food. So we have a mixture of professional and private answers, which is great. Okay. So, okay. So are you representing a startup, an academia, corporate, and an investor, or would you prefer to just classify yourself as an ecosystem stakeholder? Okay, startups dominate thanks to our corporate visitor and their stakeholders and others. And are you participating in other Tech Forever focus groups? I think maybe some people from prevention and wellness, as I saw. And the maybe is if you don't know. Okay, that's good. That's good that people are participating in other groups as well. Really taking advantage of all the work that Group Mutuel has done to put this together. And have you already raised money for your innovation? Okay. Well, thanks. I think this gives us a little idea. I don't know if everybody was able to vote about who's here today. That's great. Thank you, Barbara. Go back and share again. All right. So in this next part, I wanted to speak a little bit about what we're going to be doing this year in this focus group. So, what's our objective and learning approach? What are the meetups that we plan to have? Expert talks. Now, expert talks is just the excuse to have a conversation with each other and to discuss specific topics that may be relevant. Corporate workshops. By corporate here, I mean Groupe Mutuel clients that we want to reach out to, and we'll discuss how we do that. And then I'd like to introduce you to other people that are participating in this focus group. So as Nicolas said, the focus groups are part of the overall Tech for Eva context. We have growth companies, we have early stage company, and we have a community, and this is a community event. Now, what we want to do is, really help you refine the product market fit to better understand your target customers and accordingly to drive investor interest, and to do this in a way also that uses open innovation. Now, our learning approach.
Marta, sorry, you meant to be showing slides?
Yes, I am. Did it not show? Thank you for warning me. Okay, thanks for telling me that. Okay, am I sharing now?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there. Okay, so like I said, we want to have discussion groups such as we're having today. There will be a series of topics. We want to discuss the pain points that we have in innovating. Lan Zouagier, who's with Nicolas Leyo, the co-founder of this event, also would like us to think about what remaining technological challenges do we have that we could potentially find synergies in the different groups and potentially help to solve together, which is an open innovation way of looking at things. And then the idea is to, again, like I said, share expert talks with the specific purpose of having a discussion. Is this something that's relevant to us? What does it mean for our business? These expert talks are complementary to the main expert talks in the Tech for Eva, which of course are the most important. So these are satellite talks that you can participate, yes or no, based on your interest. So we have 3 meetups planned. The first one is today. And I've always we put them on September and November, always on the 30th. So it's easy to remember. On September 30th, we'll be talking about solution design workshops and presentations, and with a little focus on how we work with stakeholders, including the medical community and patient advocacy group. And for those that are direct to consumers, of course, with the consumer. And then on the third meetup on the 30th of November, we'd like to refine the go-to-market strategy for our startups and of course the investor strategy, and refine and consolidate the learning. Now, if a need comes, we can potentially, have another meetup, but at least these are the ones that are planned right now on the 30th of these months. So the expert talks are all about supporting skill building. They're about stimulating critical thinking and also building community, like Nicolas said. And we'd like to have a series of different talks along the health value chain. And they're going to be very short, 15 minutes, 15-minute discussion, and again, to derive implications for our own projects. And they're open to all members of the Tech for Eva community. So the first talk, the first 2 talks are scheduled, the rest are still open on July 20th. We have Tim Brown from the Planning Shop International, which is a healthcare only market research agency. And he's head of research. And he's going to talk about how we can use behavioral science to really go beyond the rational way that people make decision-making to understanding the fundamental needs that drive adoption. And they think that that gives you an unfair advantage in driving, your brand or product. And together with that, Sarah Baldwin from here in Lausanne, once you understand your customer, you tell a story. So how do you tell a story and why it matters and how to do it? And specifically, it's about delivering the kind of storytelling that gets your customer to click, gets your customer to make a decision and go the next step. So again, to stimulate our thinking about how we understand our customers and how we reach out to them. Jérôme Michaud works for P&G Healthcare in Geneva, and he's agreed to share his experience with the acquisition of the Merck OTC product line. And so the idea here is for us to look at how corporates manage when they integrate acquisitions. It'll just be an opportunity to hear a little bit from P&G down the road from us. Kelly, some of you know her. She works, she's head of digital at Sunstar, which is a multinational, Japanese multinational, also in our area. And she's a big social community builder. She's a social media person. And her talk is going to help us to start thinking about how we're going to use the social media element for our customer acquisition strategy going forward. And we can ask her, questions on her vast experience in this area. And finally, I thought I'd bring a talk on market access. Brigitte's worked for 4 or 5 different medtech companies, including with me at Medtronic. She knows the reimbursement market access market in Europe inside out. And I thought she would give some information about how it works in France, Germany, and UK, especially that Germany is starting to reimburse apps, healthcare apps, excuse me, which has never occurred before. It's still difficult, but it can happen. So I thought that would be interesting. And based on what we discussed today, perhaps, we will think of other things. So what about the innovators among us? What about you out there? We ran a little survey to get a feeling for where you feel strongest. So for those of you who replied, thank you very much. You said that you felt strongest about product development, by which we mean product design and engineering. You feel strong about market and customer data required to make product and marketing decisions. And you feel strongest about investor pitches and fundraising, which is really great to see. I'll be very transparent that I'm a little unsure about number 2, because in our long experience, we find that 2 is usually a weak point. But anyway, if you have enough data to start making those decisions, that's great news. And then what you feel weakest at is pricing strategy and clinical development, separate from product development. And then you can see that product development is both seen as a strength and as a weakness. So I think perhaps we could be having, together with a session on reimbursement, we can also have a session potentially on pricing. And, as we go forward, you can make recommendations for what you'd like to hear from us and where we can help. We also plan therapy area discovery workshops. Now, these are workshops for Groupe Mutuel's corporate clients, such as, for example, in Geneva, we have Richemont, the luxury group, and Nicolas shared with me, and Pictet, the bank. So they also have an HR department. They may like to work with us, as well as other people that like to hear about the topics that we have some expertise in. And here we're going to recruit some doctors to give talks on 3 topics, as you see on the screen. And they will be at lunchtime, so people can easily join. We plan those for October and November. But maybe there's also an opportunity for you. So if you would like to volunteer, let us know if you're interested to have a pitch. We will review with Groupe Mutuel, which corporate clients actually want to participate, what their needs are, and we can discuss that in our second workshop. And then perhaps the startups that are part of Tech for Eva in this focus group can make a suggestion and volunteer to pitch, and we can talk about menopause, for example, but also some menopause solutions, incontinence, and some incontinence solutions in period health. And perhaps the corporate clients would also like to hear about that. So it's an opportunity for you to volunteer. And I also just wanted to look ahead and say thank you to other members of the team that you'll have an opportunity to meet. We have Nicolas Callot from the Groupe Mutuel Corporate Care. So he'll be working with us when we do the corporate workshop. And I'm sure many of you would like to meet Charlotte, who is from the head of business and digital transformation group at Groupe Mutuel. And Oriana couldn't join today. She'd like to receive the taped session, Nicolas, but she's the leader behind the Femtech Summit in Zurich, and will be joining us on September 30th. So we have a little bit more time now before we start the breakouts to really talk a little bit about the disease area. I'm going to talk a little bit about menopause and then get you to contribute and provide feedback, and the same for incontinence. So in terms of menopause, we all know what happens. Oh, we've all heard about the hot flashes, I should say, flushes, I don't know how to pronounce it, night sweats, down to difficulty sleeping, which a lot of women complain about, reduced sex drive, problems with memory and concentration. Certainly isn't an easy thing to live with. Also, menopause is associated with other conditions related to the fluctuating estrogen, which then increases the risk of developing cardiovascular disease. Musculoskeletal health suffers. We know that women's bone density mass is reduced much faster than men after 50. And we've heard about concentration, memory, and cognitive decline. So menopause is bad enough, but when it's associated with other conditions, it can make life even more difficult. The hot flashes are apparently, and you'll see it's the most important and visible issue. The whole area of vasomotor symptoms is experienced by 75% of people and really has a big impact on quality of life. And there are studies out there to say that these vasomotor symptoms increase the healthcare utilization as much as 121% in one study. So people are seeking help and they are costing money, and that there's a loss of productivity. There's a 60% productivity loss for women that are experiencing vasomotor symptoms versus women that don't experience it. So obviously, there seems to be a real need to do something about this. And this is a study from Frost and Sullivan. Now, here we're getting to the critical point, of what seems to me a critical point is the undertreatment and, of course, psychological burden. The people I've spoken to from my sisters and others are clear that women feel they cannot discuss the symptoms and at work, for example, due to the stigma. And I don't have a menopause specialist. I don't know how many women have a menopause specialist. And when you seek medical attention, it seems a lot of us are left untreated. So there's a real, I think, untreatment going on here. And on the other hand, people are saying that menopause is a 600 billion spending opportunity, yet only 5% of femtech startups address menopause. So here I wanted to conclude with some positive and negative points to get us thinking about menopause, and then, like to hear from you. So I think several of you who are innovating in the area of menopause have pointed out that, there's 1 billion women experiencing menopause by 2025. This is literally 12% of the world population. So it's huge. The market has a massive potential, but it remains untapped, as we saw, due to stigma and associated silence. There was written about this in Forbes. On the also positive side, though, is that Gen X, now in their 40s, they're digitally savvy and they're going towards menopause. So this means there's going to be a strong addressable market in digital health coming up. And this is very important. So we are looking at a trend that's going in the direction of innovating in this area. And more startups and venture capitals are pursuing the menopause market, according to Crunchbase. So there's a real trend, in this direction. On the other hand, on the more, negative side, we know that women's health overall, if you look at where companies have been innovating, it's birth control and fertility. So for example, Ferring is a big leader in fertility or infertility. And I worked for 11 years for another big leader, Merck. So, you have big companies that are in the fertility area. And coming up in femtech, you see that menstrual health and pregnancy are the two areas that have been very active for the femtech side. Apologies for my voice. So menopause today is largely a market for the vasomotor symptoms, and hormone therapy dominates, despite the fact there are concerns over the blood clots and also some cancers. And so there's a market out there for bioidentical hormone therapies, but these are not regulated. So coming from the industry, I would say, don't trust those, or I wouldn't trust it since there's no real data there. And what I want to say by this slide is that, there's a 10 billion market in these vasomotor symptoms, and you can see it's it's very spread out. It's not only just estrogen and progesterone, but things like pregabalin, gabapentin, which are neuropathic pain drugs or antidepressants. So, you know, you see a lot of different things being used, but literally, if you look at these market reports, just 10 companies dominate. So my message here is that menopause is a big problem, but we're only seem to be treating the vasomotor symptoms. So the summary here is that these hot flashes are a $10 billion market and growing, yet only 5% of femtech startups address menopause, and the subject remains taboo. The positive side is a very big market. And the second one is a very important thing from the healthcare marketing perspective, because fertility is 9 months. And then when you've had your baby, you're no longer a client, right? Where menopause typically lasts up to 30 years. And this is one of the things that healthcare companies want to go after is long-term treatment. They want to go for a long lifetime value of the customer, which means that menopause has a huge potential, because once you capture a patient, once you have an advocate, you know, maybe an advocate for many, many years to come. So this is a very positive element about this market. Yet a limited number of women seek solutions, and specifically under treatment by the medical establishment. We heard that even women who seek help may not end up getting the help. So my conclusion for menopause, just to think about as we discuss going forward, is that it's a market creation game, which makes it a little tougher for us because it's not a market share game. It's not a huge market where we're going to grab a segment. It's a market that needs to be developed because we need to see more women seeking treatment. We need to see, you know, more doctors wanting to prescribe. So that's the real the real ad interim conclusion that I come to. And at that, I would like to just throw it out. If I have stimulated your thinking, for those who work on menopause or for others, can I get you to, we have somebody, hi. Sorry, I don't see your name, but thank you for raising your hand. Go ahead.
If it's Elizabeth, yes,
I see the name. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Marta. Thank you so much for your overview. I think it was incredibly well done as someone who's focused on menopause. A couple of reactions from my side. We could also consider erectile dysfunction as being classified as taboo and had to be market creating at one point. So I find it interesting that, you know, that was perceived as maybe a challenge when I think nobody saw erectile dysfunction as challenging in that way. It just happened, right? And this is what you see in women's health, that if it's a problem that an older man has, it's easily solved, but for a woman, it seems to be a challenge for the healthcare industry. But that's just a drum that I've been beating.
That's a great comment. Exactly.
Yeah. So again, there's some kind of bias going on here that I find just incredible. I'd also like to mention that menopause, we saw that nice list of all the symptoms, but they're incredibly interrelated, right? Insomnia, anxiety, brain fog, hot flashes are all a result of an overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system. So a hot flash is not a temperature problem. It is your fight or flight response gone haywire. So let's look at what happens. You have a hot flash, that's your fight or flight response, right? That drives anxiety because you never know when it's going to happen again. That heightened cortisol level prevents you from sleeping, right? And then when you're in a state of stress, when you're sleeping, you're going to have more hot flashes, which drives the anxiety. You're not sleeping, you have brain fog. So we can't pick off these symptoms independently. We have to look at treating that symptom cluster. And that's what we do. And I don't want to pitch the company now, but the other thing is that we need to look at the societal implications of menopause.
Can I just stop you for a second? I want you to go on and I'm hearing you saying it's a central nervous system disease. It's a sympathetic nervous system disease.
That's right.
Okay, but go ahead, yeah.
which, by the way, is also why women experience depression.
Yes.
Right. Now, if you pile on top of the fact that many physicians are not trained in menopause and a lot of their symptoms are kind of dismissed, then you really feel a sense of, I need to suffer in silence.
Mhm.
So this all has an amplifying effect. And then you throw into it that now women are at a stage in their life where they're taking care of elderly parents. They're also at the top of their game in senior positions in corporations. And you can see how this becomes a very serious matter that needs to be taken with some attention. The thing that really we think about is that this hits women when they're at the top of their game.
That's right.
When they're in their highest earning potential, when corporations have invested 25, 30 years of training these women to the top of the corporate ladder, maybe board positions, and these symptoms force them to just walk out the door. And so it would behoove corporations and societies to take this very seriously, because you're losing 50% of your human capital in academia, organizations, government. And so that's really what we're focused on, is how do we keep senior women in the workforce at the top of their game, because they're also leaving retirement money on the table. So this is also really an equality issue.
Okay, great. So the vision, I like the vision of saying that erectile dysfunction 30 years ago and accepted and treated today, we need to take the central nervous system disease menopause forward in the same way and make it something that everybody wants, what is acknowledged, not taboo, and treated.
Yes, thank you.
Elizabeth. And we look forward to hearing more about your solution. Anybody else want to make a comment?
I would like to point something
Hi,
out, Martha.
Cindy.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'd like to point out that there was the SWAN study that was done, found that women who suffer significant hot flashes in their 40s are 80% more likely to suffer heart disease 20 years later in their 60s. So this isn't just about being able to work. It's not just about increased productivity in their 40s. This has long-term health effects. So if a woman is able to get treatment in her 40s for hot flashes, this means that she's more likely to not have heart disease in her 60s. She's more likely to not die of heart disease in her 60s. So we're talking about, some pretty far-reaching implications of treatment. And at least in the US, a lot of women just don't even know. I didn't know what these things were. My friends didn't know. And these are all well-educated women with resources and access to medical care. So if we didn't know, we're just vastly underinformed to a large extent. So, and this goes back to what you said about market creation. And I think part of what we're also dealing with is these vastly different healthcare systems around the world. I had sent a message yesterday about how in the US, the Department of Health and Human Services places the reimbursement rates for medical procedures based on Medicare, and doctors and hospitals base their costs on that. And the reimbursement rates for medical procedures on men is higher than the reimbursement rates for medical procedures on women.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So surgeons will prefer to do procedures on men. Hospitals will prefer that the surgeons do procedures on men because they get more money. And then the research money that the hospitals get, it all stems from that. It's this circular argument. So you end up with more research for men. You end up with more treatment for men. You end up with a lot of more things for men. And I'm not saying that this was done. This has been going on for years. Yeah. It was first identified in 1993 in the US. And I'm not saying that there was some malicious intent behind this, but it does have this sort of snowball effect that here we are, where, you know, Viagra was found at the same time that it was found to treat erectile dysfunction. It was also found that it was effective for reducing menstrual pain, but they didn't follow that route. They only followed the erectile dysfunction route. So in the US, for whatever reason, you know, they follow the treatment and the reimbursement that benefit men.
Okay, well, this is an unrelated story, but thank you for that comment, Cindy. I read that in Japan, it took them almost 20 years to approve the contraceptive pill and maybe 12 months to approve Viagra. So it's shocking, yeah. So your first point, it's about hot flashes and cardiovascular disease. I think we can park that very interesting thought and continue to discuss that, because there's probably a lot to be done there. And it's always a challenge is how do you get people to get involved in prevention, and how do you get reimbursers to get interested in prevention? Okay, so I think I'll just share a few slides on the incontinence. Thank you for those very insightful comments. Basically, urinary incontinence, as we know, it affects female, male, and of course, the elderly. I was recently in a place in Italy, in Tuscany, where there was a pharmacy, and I was shocked that there was a small section for baby diapers and a huge section for old people's diapers. So I guess it affects a lot of old people, but, and of course, it has serious physical and psychological well-being. But stress incontinence, the result of weak urethral muscle and support, is more common in women than men. I think this is the big disease area that a lot of us are working on. Just to get our facts straight, there's also urge urinary incontinence, which is the result of an overactive bladder muscle contraction. And then some people think that the OAB should be a better term, and it involves UUI or not in several forms. So these are just an overview of the main types of urinary incontinence. For females, it involves history and physical examination, a vaginal exam, measurement of postvoidal residual volume, and doctors always have to rule out urinary tract infection. How is it treated? Let's just take an example of the Mayo Clinic, where Cindy's from, in Minnesota. They have minimally invasive injection therapies. This is literally from their website. Management of mesh complications, Botox in difficult cases, neuromodulation of the urinary tract, and pelvic organ prolapse. So we see, there's, a lot of simple therapies like physiotherapy, but there's also more complicated things we can do. And I thought it was interesting that in addition to urologists, they also have urogynecologists. I don't think there's a lot of urogynecologists around the world, but in US, they also have now a pelvic medicine and reconstructive surgery specialty, which is recognized by gynecologists and the Board of Urology. So let's say that it seems like more people are specializing in female urinary incontinence. Just again, very quickly, female UI treatment, there's a lot of physiotherapy. You see that in both sides. Then you have devices for SUI, such as the pessary or urethral inserts that have to be placed by doctors, and in difficult cases, surgery. And in the UUI, in difficult cases, Botox. So I guess some of us here, I think, are innovating in the minimally invasive side, as opposed to just going from physiotherapy to a device that needs to be placed by the doctor. As far as the size of the market, I mean, it's a big market, but if you consider that, some blockbuster drugs are 5-6 billion, a single drug, the whole urinary incontinence market is still relatively small at 4 billion, but driving growth are apparently diabetics, also more likely to have urinary incontinence. And of course, pregnancy and childbirth can cause it. There's increasing awareness about minimally invasive techniques, and there are some technological advancements, such as are being developed by people in this Tech for Eva group. but the disease area apparently is over 200 million worldwide, and it also still suffers from some degree of underdiagnosis. And the last slide, and then I want to see if the audience has something to say, to share with us, is it seems that in terms of the overall incontinence, I don't have the figures exactly because I didn't write the market report, that stress incontinence is the biggest, followed by urge incontinence, overflow, and functional. And on the right, the vaginal slings seem to be the fastest growing market. All of it is growing, also the urinary catheters and others, but the vaginal slings seems to be the most lucrative segment going forward. So again, for those who are knowledgeable about this, is there something that you would like to share about incontinence? Probably less of a market creation game, but still under diagnosis, as well as was pointed out by some of the startups in their pitches.
Yeah, I can say hi. Here is Yair from Unicor. So after talking with many gynecologists and urogynecologists and professionals, there is what we see, there is a big knowledge gap also for gynecologists themselves. And many times what will happen is that the gynecologist will send their patients to the pelvic floor center or to the urogynecologist. Okay. And they don't have a good treatment to offer them, or the knowledge. Even if we talk on pessaries, for example, it's something that is hard to maintain, to have all these different sizes and forms. Yeah. And then once they get to the hospital has a different motivation. And then they're more biased to do the surgeries because they create more income for the hospital itself. So I think what will be interesting is how to get the patients already a good treatment when they're at their gynecologist and at their maybe first or second contact point.
Okay, very interesting. So there's you seem to have said that there's some early minor treatment, like maybe physio, and then there's the hospital more invasive, and in between there's a lack of options when it gets more difficult, but you're not ready to go to the hospital and have surgery, and you'd like that middle segment to have more options and for patients to seek more treatment. Is that right, Yair?
Exactly. Yeah, and to offer it, because now the problem that once they get to the hospital, it's already kind of too late. And I think there's good solutions and treatment there that women could be offered already before in this journey that is still not addressed enough.
Okay, so it seems like there's a need for a treat early message in incontinence.
May I add on this? Sorry for my voice, I'm still having a cold. I'm Diana from Move On.
Hi, Diana.
I agree absolutely with Yair for this gap between doing almost nothing, that it doesn't work, or it works only by the people who do it correctly, and then it's again 50% of them with physio, and it's only for the light cases. But when it's then more moderate to severe, there is a certain gap between the physio and exactly the surgeries. And I think also the education is lacking. You know, if a male goes and they have a prostate cancer, the first thing the doctor discusses it, you know, after the operation, you might have incontinence. And there is this artificial sphincter that we can offer if this is the case, because there is no soft solution. But I mean, I was not asked by my gynecologist, not even once during pregnancy, whether I'm aware what happens after often. Yeah. And I think this is missing also with the Hebamen. They might be also a good first contact point where you where they make you aware of these, and that there are solutions, there are emerging solutions on the market and developing in this area, that this mindset that yeah, I have to live with it. This shouldn't be.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Okay, sounds similar to menopause mindset. I have to live with it. I can't do anything about it. My doctor doesn't talk to me about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Diana. Anything else? Yeah, thank you, Yair and Diana. So now we're going to talk more about the disease areas that we know most about. And I'd like to start on the first breakout. So we have Barbara is going to be assigning us, or is going to be assigning us in a second. I'm just going to tell you what the remit is. So 15 minutes discussion and then some presentations. So the question is, how well do we understand our consumers? And here's from the point of view of reaching out to our consumers, our market and the patient journey. And what critical factors drive patient behavior with a view to being able to capture those patients. So the breakout groups we'd like you to discuss for your therapy area. So one group menopause, one incontinence, one period health. What are the key problems? Are there any recent trends that impact your potential to reach out to the patients? Anything about today's solutions and anything about unmet needs? And you can choose which of these to focus on. And the idea is really to think about the projects, to think about the consumers, and to think about how we can reach our consumers and how these factors influence our ability to do so going forward. So we have not spoken about period health yet. So when they come back, I'd like to ask the period health team to volunteer so we can learn more about period health.
We're back, Marta.
Okay. Hi.
We were a small but perfectly formed group, I would like
Perfect.
to say. And Rosemont has kindly agreed to take the lead on this. I did take some notes, so if necessary, I can jump in and help facilitate the discussion, but Rosemont is going to take the lead.
Okay, thank you, Rosemont.
Okay, yes. So for our group, we looked at the supply chain distribution with regards to period health. So we looked at identifying wide product offerings. And then we also looked at data and collection systems for users to be able to make informed decisions with regards to the period product offerings we are making. And then we also talked about conducting a stress test on your solution outside your market zone to be able to get a number of independent feedbacks which will influence your decision.
Do you have any slides that you want to share? You just want to talk through?
We didn't use the slides, Marta, so
okay.
we were a small group, so we had a kind of very intimate discussion. And I think the takeaway for me from this discussion was that, here's two different solutions. One is providing a kind of emergency access to women's hygiene products if they have an unexpected event around their period. And the other is sort of providing an e-commerce platform for women to buy women's health and hygiene products. And I think, what came out of this was the driving force that, women want privacy and discretion, but they also want to be able to be sort of part of a community. And both of these solutions were able to capture information and data and share that. So, it's becoming more and more apparent in lots and lots of different therapy areas that the product is one part of the solution, but information and data is another very important part of it, and building a community around that therapy area. So both of these.
That's a big unmet need. Okay.
So Sebastian was also in our group. Sebastian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think for our solution, it's all about just the knowledge sharing. So we believe that the community aspect is truly important to be successful in this area. And to tap on what kind of experience other women have with certain products for our e-commerce shop, and based on the product reviews and also the testing of the products, then we basically build up the assortment of our shop.
Okay, but going back to thanks for that comment. By the way, we can't see you, Sebastian. Maybe you, yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
So you discussed it in relation to your product, which we'll talk about that in the second breakout, but going back to the therapy area itself, to the period health, do you feel that, you know, what are the major recent trends that you may have discussed that impact this therapy area? What are people doing today? Are they going more online? Are they seeking more online solutions? Are they more willing to talk about it than they were before? What do you see in terms of the patients, the population? How are their behavior changing?
Yeah, I mean, period health is still a taboo topic, and our ultimate goal is to destroy that kind of barrier, and that people are talking about it and are engaged in the topic, talking about potential solution, and we are the ones who want to provide something for that kind of need.
It seems like the taboo subject is coming out in every single group.
Yeah. I mean, it's highly important, but we have seen it in different areas, like with sex toys, and people are willing to buy those products online, and I think the same could happen with period products, that instead of opting for just the normal tampoo in a retail shop, there are different solutions that are maybe better suited for the need of in terms of period health.
Okay, so basically the online element is providing a privacy that was not available before. So it's a big opportunity for this area.
Yeah, I mean, one aspect is the privacy, but also the knowledge sharing aspect of the peer group.
That's what we wanted to get at. Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So does menopause want to go next? Thank you, Sebastian and everybody, and Rosamund and Rick.
Yeah, we can go next. I just wanted to throw something out there too, and it's a big discussion topic in the US. It's just availability of products for menstruation. You know, there's been a discussion that it should be as available as toilet paper.
Makes sense.
Can I also just add another comment there, which is around the area of nutrition and period health. And it does seem that there are limitations as I'm in the process of raising 3 adolescent girls and seeing that it's not so different than when I was an adolescent, that there are really limitations in the area of nutrition solutions for these girls. So often they learn to take Advil, or they need to take the pill to help with their period pain and associated premenopausal, PMS symptoms. Sorry. And I think there's a lot there that could be done and could be researched further, with 80% of adolescents experiencing either period pain or other PMS symptoms every month.
Yes, thank you. Okay, menopause group.
Yeah, I was going to put this in presentation mode, but I told you guys.
It's in the middle bottom scroll bar. Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to invite my colleagues to join in here. So we talked about some of the problems in thinking about menopause and how to come up with solutions. Menopause is really still a very taboo subject. We believe primarily because it signals the end of a woman's reproductive and maybe useful life to society. Currently there's been an approach by the medical community that's looking at discrete symptoms such as hot flashes or insomnia and night sweats, versus thinking about looking at the whole picture. How do these symptoms interact? What's really going on here? How can we take a prevention approach or a wellness approach through areas like nutrition or looking at cardiovascular or bone health. We also identified the problem that women don't know what we don't know. And so we may be suffering from things that we don't really understand are related to menopause, such as dry eye, migraines, heart palpitations, even, you've heard about things like frozen shoulder, where women's shoulders lock up in their 40s, and nobody understands why this happens to women. We also talked about maybe taking these broad labels out of the discussion, such as perimenopause, and how to tighten that up. And then we discussed the fact that the association with aging really excludes those women who are thrown into menopause by either cancer treatment or surgery. And there are quite a few, especially women, young women suffering from breast and ovarian cancer. I'll just pause there and see if any of my colleagues want to join in.
So I'm just tempted to highlight your point, Liz, that in fact menopause is a central nervous system issue that leads to the myriad of symptoms that women experience. And this is not something that we perceive as a layperson, that this is what is occurring.
Yeah, an interesting side note there is, even when I spoke to my own medical doctor, who is a specialist, not a specialist, but she's a women's health specialist, and we started talking about the central nervous system aspect of this, she said she was unaware.
Wow.
So we also talked about recent trends that may be opening up opportunity. The fact that young women are using fertility trackers, period trackers. There's an explosion of apps, wearables, in digital health, and that has really created a greater awareness of the opportunity for menopause. There are more and more doctors being trained specifically in menopause. I think that has to do with the discussion that's happening in society, but also the fact that we have a population aging into menopause that is quite large, and that's the millennial population, at least in the US. Here in the US, there are more celebrities speaking openly about menopause, fashion models, Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, and that helps start the discussion. And then we see that pharmaceutical companies are finally taking notice and seeing this opportunity space. Bayer with the Candy therapeutic in stage 3 trials, Astellas with fezolinetant, and Merck starting a new female-focused operation. Anything else there from my colleagues?
We could probably highlight that there is an increasing interest in nutrition in those women who are aware, but also that becomes confusing to them, which we will talk about later.
Yeah, we know that women are spending about $2,000 a year out of pocket on things like supplements, but they're really just throwing a dart, at a dartboard. They're not sure exactly how to approach nutrition and supplements.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Today's solutions, they're really limited. It's primarily things like hormone replacement therapy. And these solutions really need to change over time with changing hormones. Menopause is a journey. It's highly individualized, and also it changes over time. So how do we look at that waxing and waning of hormones? The medical community, we've already talked about, is not really trained in this. So there's an opportunity there. And when doctors are trained, the focus of the solution is pharmacological in nature. So either patches or pills. There are not enough highly trained OBGYNs and general practitioners in this area. I think there's a huge opportunity for education. And we need to focus on individualized solutions, because there's really not a one-size-fits-all solution. And perhaps this is why it hasn't been tackled, because it's quite complex.
Yes.
And then we were talking about how does culture, ethnic culture, or the environment affect menopause? Is there a language for menopause? We talked about the fact that in some cultures it's described as like the witching hour for women. And so how do we change or address solutions for specific cultural needs? Here's the opportunity space. So every unmet need is an opportunity, starting with aspects of the patient journey. So how do we change this reluctance to discuss the topic? And how do we create a smoother journey? Because we find that once a woman becomes aware of the problem or the challenge of menopause, they're kind of approaching it in a very punctuated way and maybe not getting the answers they want. So how do we smooth out that journey as we solve the problem? We notice that women tend to talk to other women first, either sisters, mothers, or a peer group. So there's an importance of community in any solution. And we recognize that there's a lot that women just don't know what we don't know. And there are other symptoms such as dry eye, migraines. And so how do we create a holistic view on the woman and what she might be experiencing? I heard recently that emergency room visits for women over the age of 40 tend to be associated with what is believed to be a cardiac event, when it is in fact heart palpitations or anxiety associated with menopause. So
Wow.
just really misunderstanding on the part of the woman that maybe what I'm feeling is not a cardiac event, it's just the effect of menopause. We talked about leaving some people out that have been thrown into menopause by surgery or illness. We talked about how to take this out of the reproductive health bucket, because it's not really about reproductive health, it's about quality of life and living life to your fullest. We need to shift the focus to hormonal health, and again, looking at the cycle that a woman experiences as she goes through menopause. Nutrition is highly overlooked, but also we recognize that it's overwhelming to find the right solution. I can attest to that, not knowing which supplements to take or whether they work. And then thinking about a holistic view of the woman in her lifestyle, wellness prevention, rather than point symptoms.
Thank you. That's great.
I think that was all we had. Yeah.
Thank you very much, ladies. Michael, over to the incontinence group.
Okay, so we were like Rick, we were a intimate group. We had 3 innovators, Lan, Diana, who took the notes on the slides, and Yair, who I think is going to be the sort of spokesperson. We were also lucky enough to have Nicolas, who was prodding the group, to get to sort of focus a little bit on the data and the key, trigger points of getting that data. So when you have a database, what do you look for to get information on this disease?
Oh, good.
And actually, we just spoke about problems and unmet needs.
That's good.
We didn't get to the other 2 topics.
That's completely fine.
Okay, off you go, Yair.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'll start, and if there's something missing, Diana or the other can help me. So we talked, I think, first of all, this is very connecting also to the menopause group, because many of these women will also suffer or will be in the stage of their life when they're in menopause. And that now we kind of divide things into kind of smaller diseases or situations, but many times it's a complex situation in the life when these things are connected. So when we're talking about female urinary incontinence, so one big problem is the lack of public awareness of the women themselves. And then on the other hand, there's the lack of knowledge about different treatments from the healthcare system. And connected to this is the taboo and stigma around it. So there are also still places where you have shame when women talk about it between themselves or with others, but also with doctors themselves. I think maybe it's not written here, but the whole point of this being a woman's issue also, I think it's connected to this awareness, because in the end, you know, it's there's lack of interest from maybe men groups, where in the end it's very affecting them, or like it's connected to everybody. If it's because all of us started from the pelvic floor and somehow which is connected to it, or we're part of creating a family, and then it's also need to be in the interest of everybody that women will be healthy and have a good quality of life. Then we talked about the daily life activities reduction, and that it means that the symptoms are not only the let's say physical symptoms, it's also the psychological symptoms. People who could die just because of staying at home and not participating in life till a point where it's really can be lethal, but all the range in between. Lack of access to diverse treatment options. So we think that there's a very or bigger awareness of using pads and kind of treating the problem, which is not a treatment, it's just treating the symptoms, or making hiding the problem than really tackling it, where there's a big also interest of the industry to keep this situation, because they earn from, when we talk about the disposables, for example, they earn from these years of purchasing these pads. On the other hand, there's the surgeries that are very invasive and also recurring. And we feel there is a big gap in between these two ends, and women don't have enough access to understand what are the different treatments that could be in this range, and that this knowledge they need to have more access for this knowledge and to understand it. QOL reduction, what was it? I don't remember. You're on mute, Michelle.
Sorry, this was quality of life reduction.
Oh yeah, okay.
You described it generally. Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about it. Missing adaptation of the corporate environment. So we see that, and this was also talked before, there will be many women in the corporate world that will suffer from it, and it will be also in the motivation of the companies or corporates where they work to help them, because it will be also helpful for them, like in a very, let's say, egoistic point of view. But we see that also there's this trend of corporates trying to offer their employees health solutions, and we think there's not enough, that this topic is not addressed enough. And career break possible. Maybe you can help me here, I'm not sure.
No, that's good. I think it's pretty complete. That's
okay.
Do you have another slide, or is?
Yes.
Okay.
We have just the unmet needs.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so it's also maybe a bit staying in the problem space, but it's we talked about the access to information, patient associations. What was that again?
That like patient informed groups or patient associations are basically missing or not very active in this area.
Yeah.
yeah, then the psychological support. So many times it's also, you would need, so it's a lot about understanding the whole situation, and it's not just going to the doctor, having 5 minutes there and then get a decision for what's going to happen. It's more about to being heard and share your story and understand your problem. Attracting the right patient in the right moment. We see that there's might be times when we talk about menopause or postpartum, and maybe there's other stages in life where women can be addressed. So for example, if woman had a baby and now her focus is not on her urinary incontinence, but another 100 different things, maybe in a half a year from there or a year from there, she would realize, oh, I have this problem, but then it's not being addressed. Preventive measures to be available in the right moment. So there are not much research about preventive treatment. It's mostly now as treatment, and I think there's lack of treatment that are offered for women, but also research about preventive, because it's different buckets of money and it's sometimes more complicated to show. Misconception of use of yoga-like courses for pelvic floor dysfunction. So for example, many women will go to a yoga course with their neighbors, friends, and think that they're working on their pelvic floor and working on their problem, where basically it's a misconception and they will need some more specific treatment for it. Effective and safe treatment options between physio and surgery. We talked about it, I guess. And regular checkup screening. So this is something that we think is also missing, to have these regular checkups. So like you would have for cancer, that it's kind of easy a checkup, and women could do it either after having the first, giving the first childbirth, or let's say we wrote 35 years onwards, maybe the number is a bit different, but that there would be regularly test for it and not waiting. So if we talk about incontinence, which comes often with prolapse, so not waiting to get a higher level, let's say level 3 or 4 of prolapse, then catching it more in earlier stages. I hope I didn't miss anything.
That's great. That's great. I mean, we'll have more of a chance to speak about it in the end, but I mean, what really kind of strikes me about everything you said is that, you know, to me, there's a middle ground treatment option that's missing between physio and surgery. I think that's a big unmet need. And then I think there's an opportunity for incontinent patients to access more information and maybe to talk to patient advocacy groups online, because it's a great opportunity to access information and to do it privately. And it takes out the stigma or the fear, and then, you know, the opportunity for regular checkups and follow-ups, which would allow more women to be treated. So, okay, maybe thank you for that. Maybe everybody needs a 5-minute sort of natural break, and we can, maybe I can quickly present what we need to do for a breakout too. And then you can take a 5-minute break and then join your room and come back in about half an hour or so. So let me just quickly take you through, if I can share screen again. So in this second focus group, and thank you for sticking to this in this breakout group, we're going to talk more, we're going to focus more on innovation. Let me make sure that I am screen sharing, because I don't think I am. So we're going to talk more about, you know, what the actual projects that we have in terms of innovation. You know, what are the pain points that we are experiencing in innovating in this area? You know, what have we learned so far when we are innovating in incontinence, in period health, or in menopause? What have we learned, and what barriers do we need to overcome in order to capture our products and patients? So again, you can choose what to discuss. Do you want to discuss your innovation pain points? Again, we said that there was an interest to see if there were some common innovation pain points in the different groups. Maybe you want to talk about go-to-market pain points, or you want to talk about, what are the opportunities to capture patients? So we're more speaking now, not about the therapy area, but about how we innovate in this area. So please have a discussion. We'll be back at 4:15 Central European Time. And please join your breakout rooms either now or in a 5-minute after you get a little break. It's okay? Anybody have a question or comment? Okay, see you in a minute. Okay, Michael, so how about you guys start? And let's try to keep it to 5-6 minutes, everybody.
Okay, so we had a super session. Our group is revving up. We could go all night and we'd only get better. Okay, so Yair is going to show the slides, and Diana is going to be the spokesperson this time.
Perfect. And before you share the slides, would you mind putting, not now, but incontinence in the title before you send it to Barbara, please? Don't confuse. Or your abbreviation. Yes, thank you.
Are you there, Diana?
Yeah. Oh.
I don't see her anymore.
No, you can wait for her to come back.
Yeah, I saw that she was. Oh, there she is. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. My Wi-Fi is not very good upstairs, so I need to go down.
Worry. Okay,
so
go.
Exactly. We have had a thorough discussion, which can continue, I think, for much longer. But just to stick it to the time and to the points. Innovation pain points, we identified that it is a very under-researched area. There is a so-called lack of incentive to think of the problem and solution, because exactly many people think that it is a old people's disease, that it's not affecting them now. So why to think about it, or why to invest to finding solutions now?
Mm-hmm.
There we discussed also the governmental intervention, whether it could help to support this innovation, and came to the conclusion that it would be great if at the first step the government would support such ideas, such devices or treatments or whatever the therapy looks like.
So by government, you mean like the innovation agencies, right? Innovation,
for example.
Okay.
Exactly. By giving like research grants to support this, by this they would de-risk the different solutions that are on the way to the market, and then it would be also easier and more acceptable for bigger VCs to then support such therapies.
Okay.
And filling this gap, because for also this about the challenge in getting private money, because it's a female topic, and although investment should be based on excellence and numbers and market, there is also emotions playing there, and it's a bit difficult to show a female disturbance or pain for mostly male investors.
Okay. Typical.
Yeah. Now the next was go-to-market pain points. There we see as the biggest issue the lack of data. We have both with Yair said that investors want this and this data on market on this or that, but if the solutions are not there, they cannot be any market calculations. There is, for example, for the slings some data, and maybe for the physiotherapy, but in between there is basically nothing, and you just blindly check what you can what can fit there. then for my specific case with the stem cell therapy, it's an issue is the whole supply chain being autologous, or one patient is getting one batch. Exactly. Then the reimbursement for all these therapeutic options, different variants, either reimbursement by health insurance or part variants where the patient also pays part of the treatment. One of the issues is also the lack of patients advocacy groups, or not even lack, but I mean, there is, for example, in Germany, they're more active, but in Switzerland, I don't know exactly what they're doing. But yeah, I didn't have the feeling that they are very, very active in patient recruitment or whatever, or making announcements. And what was this with the censorship on social media? This I forgot.
This was a point that Ye raised.
Yeah, that because of some of the topics talking about vagina or like female reproduction systems, it just won't be picked up by some of the algorithms.
It's a very interesting point. Mm.
Yeah, thank you. And last is, yeah, opportunities, how to capture patients, how to get them to us to fill this gap. The first point we discussed was that the midwives or obstetricians during pregnancy are the first contact points where you might want to start talking about this, because sometimes it happens also during pregnancy that you have these oops moments. And then this is the person who you spend basically 9 months of your life with, and you share also more intimate moments and thoughts. And I think if they are more open to discuss and also telling that there are solutions more than physio or surgery, this would also increase the awareness and also the more visual need for this.
You have 30 seconds, Diana.
Yeah, and then also we discussed that people need to be physically active also during pregnancy to keep the muscle tone, also that it is like a preventive measure, and also corporate campaigns where they see that, for example, I lose every week 1 day this person due to this problem. I could gain much more if I
So yeah, so the point was that the corporations and companies lose out also because of this problem. So it's a good place to start to build awareness.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, and I added to create new language, so maybe to talk also in a way of that it's not just a problem. So basically, it's like how you make yourself stronger, more active. Maybe it's a language thing.
Okay. You're on mute, Marta.
I said I like this slide. You did a lot of great work in creating new language, gamification, and finding important intermediaries like midwives. That's all very important stuff. That's really good.
Mm.
Okay, who would like to go next? Sanjara, or you go. Yeah, period health.
Okay, who out of our group was going to take the lead? I've got some slides, so I'm happy to share the slides.
That's good.
If somebody else would like to talk through it.
That sounds good.
Everyone, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, well, with no volunteers and in the interest of time, then perhaps I will take the lead. So we have an interesting group that are all sort of very similar in that they have direct-to-consumer type products. A couple are sort of service-oriented and one is product-oriented. And so even though the fact that one was a sort of a product that was being designed and developed, and there was two services, there were some common pain points in this pathway to market. And on the innovation side, it was feature selection. You know, what are we choosing to be included as our minimum viable product to go to market with? And you know, this reminds me of the quote, you know, strategy 101 is all about making choices. You can't be all things to all people. So, you know, on the sort of, you know, we have an e-commerce platform, and one of their challenges was choosing which products to include and how do we validate those products to be included? How do we rank them and rate them and choose the best products? And then also with that comes a sort of a price trade-off. We may be able to offer, you know, the top of the range products, but is that going to be within the financial resources of our customers? So one of the issues that they were having was gathering end user insight to inform these decisions. You know, where do we go to get this information? How do we convene panels of potential end users to help us make decisions about how we configure our product? There was also some discussion about sort of validating vendors, particularly with the sort of the e-commerce platform. And also one of the other offerings was to put vending machines with RFID access so that women in sort of rural areas or perhaps places with less retail outlets could access period products if they were caught without them. And so, you know, the question is, how do you validate the vendors? One issue that came up was some of the sort of tampons and other types of products like towels that were there. They'd had issues with them creating rashes with women and sort of skin reactions. So validating vendors became a really big issue for them to make sure that they were offering suitable products that didn't bring along with them other issues. And then one of the other sort of pain points was connecting with stakeholders. So, you know, there are other people involved in this. One was for the e-commerce platform. It was very much about, you know, they needed to select third-party vendors to do order fulfillment and warehousing, sort of like the 3PL, third-party logistics for them. So, you know, how do you choose good partners for your business? And again, how do you reach out on the sort of vending machine project? You know, they were having to partner with various facilities, so schools and churches and businesses, to have them agree to put these vending machines in their facilities and in their locations. So, you know, reaching out to them and having a value proposition for them. You know, they had to have them included in the profit sharing of this, so that they had an incentive to put these vending machines in place. So with that brings a whole sort of series of problems around your value proposition to them. What pricing do you offer them in order to incentivize them? So a lot of issues around that. Then we
Can I have a quick question? Sorry, we're probably going to run out of time, but I have a quick question, Rick. So are these groups looking to have a hybrid kind of distribution system where they're going to sell online, but they also want to make connections with testers and validate vendors? So is that what we're talking about for these people?
Yes, one of these, Sebastian, perhaps if you could jump in, but Sebastian's platform is basically a sort of one point of sale online for various women's health products. And so they would be the just the access point, the shop window, if you like. Okay. And then they would have a third party partner who would do all of the logistics for that. So that's how their model works. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's go on. That's good. Thanks.
So go-to-market pain points, again, sort of very similar amongst the different groups. Pricing strategy, how do you get the price point right for all of the stakeholders? Apologies there for the typo at the end, trying to type quickly. And so, you know, they've identified that there's various other stakeholders in the group, in the whole sort of delivery of their service or product. And so, you know, how do they slice the pie so that everyone is incentivized to be in that? And how do they set the price point was an issue. Validating the business model. So they've got an idea, you know, they've kind of fleshed it out. They've got a pretty good value proposition, but how do they actually go out and validate that and test acceptance and predict adoption rate so that they can do demand forecasting?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then lastly, this engaging stakeholders, you know, again, you know, going to market, where's your point of delivery of your service? So again, like the kind of vending machine, where can I put them where people can access them to sort of fulfill the value proposition? The value proposition is very much access when you need it, convenience, and you know, so obviously they have to talk to a lot of different stakeholders to place those in as many locations as they can. So that's what they were sort of coming up against. And
just a quick one, Rick, I have one more question.
yeah,
We need to move on. So did your group get to discuss how innovators such as in this group, or maybe something we can think about next time, you know, you're going against huge feminine hygiene companies like Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, Kimberly-Clark, you know, there's all these mega players. So is there any thought, I mean, is there a specific woman niche that you can start with that's more willing to buy an innovative product for period health? Because the market is huge and there's big players. Did you get to discuss that at all?
Yeah, I think we didn't sort of discuss it specifically, but I think it became clear that because initially the two groups that we had in the first session were sort of service oriented, it wasn't around the products as such. It was about giving women access, convenient access. So, you know, they may take products from those big manufacturers, but they're just trying to bundle them together and make them easily accessible and easily purchased.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, great. Yeah, because this is a crowded market with big players, so it's best to go with the flow than against the flow.
Right.
Cheaper. Okay, and then we have Sanjara, who's going to speak about the last group. Thank you, Rick, Sebastian, and everybody.
Martha, could you share the slides?
Yeah, you're having issue? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem.
Oh, I think it's maybe because the other first participant is sharing. Maybe I can try once.
Unshare, Rick.
Sorry, bear with me one second.
Sure.
Maybe it'll work.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it should. No, can you please share? It'll just be faster. Sorry, I think there's some settings.
Okay, so there we go. I also take a little bit of time. Okay. Am I sharing?
No.
No.
I can't see it yet.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem, it's me.
No, because I could also try to figure it out.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, now it works.
So there.
So yeah, so we were in the menopause group and we spoke about the innovation pain points, which were the need to do more research and come up with new technologies, which are, you know, over and beyond just dealing with the symptoms, the vasomotor symptoms, which we talked about. There's also a need to do rapid clinical pilots, get data out. So, you know, all the apps, the digital health services are providing a lot of health data, which should be collected and, you know, given to the right sources so that we get data from these monitoring tools. And of course, to publish them so that they're also freely available to the public to come up with new innovations. Startups should also have like health databases. Of course, there are different privacy issues, but publishing, I think, would create a foundation for further understanding and awareness and innovation in the menopause space. Next slide.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And yeah, as we talked about, there's more focus on attacking the symptoms, so treatment, but less on the prevention and nutrition, as it's seen too niche, and there's need for research and support in this area.
Sorry, I didn't realize that I had this phasing on.
Yeah. When we talk about go-to-market pain points, so one thing that we're doing is we're targeting women who see taking care of their health as kind of self-care rather than a part of their life. So they are this sandwich generation, taking care of their children as well as aging parents. So that is definitely a go-to-market pain point. We see privacy, taboo, and awareness. I think all of us across these different verticals, we see this problem. And aging is classically seen as, as we talked about, it's such a taboo topic in terms of reducing a woman's desirability from the male gaze, like we talked about. So that's also kind of impacting is one of the go-to-market pain points that we see. What about the opportunities to capture patients? I think one of us in the group mentioned that apparently during Mother's Day and Christmas, their product is mostly gifted to women. So that is definitely an opportunity to market, going via husbands and children. Also, getting healthcare professionals to be more active, health coaches, wellness clinics, longevity clinics, to be more active in this area, promoting products and access. Of course, rapid diagnostics is also something that could be an opportunity to capture patients as we see it.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
That's it. I was fast.
Okay, that was very fast. And are there any comments, other comments from the menopause group on what was presented?
If you'd like to add something.
No, that was very good.
Fast.
For all these areas, I think you always hear about, this idea of the taboo, the fact that maybe because it's very focused on female health, excuse me, there's less investor interest, and there seems to be a lot of communication to be done to raise awareness about all these.
But I like this idea of renaming the whole process. I think it came up even in the incontinence group, that let's just have a new term for this so that, it's not attached with already preconceived taboos that we've grown up with culturally. So that's something that needs to be thought about.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that Nicolas or Simon that you want to point out, or from any other of the organizers, that is anything that they want to share? I don't know, share at this point. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, once again, in these focus groups, I try to advocate on the corporate environment. There is probably some elements that we need to bring for having a better integration of the menopause women in the corporate world, and just to make sure that their career is not impacted by menopause. It's probably, I think it could be a way to communicate and to approach the market as well. So.
And maybe, I was just thinking, listening to you, Nicolas, the menopause group also spoke about the fact that maybe you didn't hear this, that there's a feeling that, if women get to some issue with the corporate and they leave, it's difficult to find a job again. If you're more than 50, 55, it's hard to reintegrate yourself. And maybe the fact that Groupe Mutuelle is itself a big corporate, and you have corporate partners that are itself big corporates, when you go and present to them about menopause or incontinence and you bring experts there, you will come with maybe greater credibility because you're a corporate, like the corporate you're speaking to. So basically, you could be a very credible messenger. As an important established Swiss corporation, you could be a credible messenger in Switzerland.
Yeah, and I think it's quite differentiating because most of the corporate care environment are talking about pregnancy. This is the core of the activity in this domain. And yeah, if we approach the larger fintech approach like this, it's definitely making the story much more interesting for the resource human resources departments that we talk to.
Yeah. And the same thing for incontinence and period health. I mean, it all fits.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would just like to see if I can share again my screen, because there's one more thing that we wanted to talk about very briefly in this session. Just a few summary main points, and then one more point. I by far not able to summarize the whole session, but I think am I sharing?
Yes.
But I think we heard that whether it's period health, incontinence, or menopause, they don't seem to be a huge priority in society, that there's still stigma, there's some lack of interest from male investors, and maybe not enough research money. And, you know, for male investors, we had the funny example that when Ember Labs, you know, had a session with investors that hot flashes can also occur to men that are undergoing some type of treatment. I forgot what she said. She had to leave early. That, woo, you know, there was investor interest there. So there seems to be an opportunity to also point out that these conditions are not only for female, especially incontinence and, you know, hormonal hot flashes, and that raised interest with men. And I found that was kind of funny. And then in terms of the different areas for period health, I also heard that online forums provide an opportunity to share knowledge in a way that is confidential, right? Because you're sharing knowledge online. That's what we heard. And also e-commerce lets women purchase a product discreetly, so that the whole digitalization is allowing for discretion, you know, discreet way of sharing knowledge and purchasing products. For menopause, we heard that there's an opportunity to frame menopause as a hormonal central nervous condition, as opposed to talking about peri or menopause. There's an opportunity to have a smoother patient journey, encouraging women to join a community of other women or to seek help to grow the market. And I think we heard the same also for incontinence. Celebrities and pharma companies are paying more attention. And there's an opportunity to have better training of the medical community. For incontinence, there's very similar to period health as well, is to access information and access patient advocacy groups online, where again, there's much less stress with the stigma because you're in a community that's interested in that. There's opportunity for middle ground treatment options between just a simple physiotherapy and getting surgery. A lot of things to be done, maybe including stem cell and other minimally invasive medical technologies, and regular checkups and follow-ups. Which brings me to the additional information that I wanted to share with this group, which is that Groupe Mutuelle would also like to put together a book. When what's inside the book, there are 4 chapters, focus groups outcomes, you know, some of the expert interviews, the startup highlights, and that there's an opportunity to have your innovation and your startup in the book. And I think that's a great opportunity, and I would like to bring it to your attention. We'll be talking about it more. And maybe Nicolas, could you also share your ideas on the Groupe Mutuelle's book concept?
Yeah, no, I think you presented it well. I mean, it's a collective co-development work that we want to do, bringing together all the best of the essence of our discussions in the different focus groups. And honestly, this one, I think today was very rich in terms of for beginning for this topic. And what we want to do is really to give to mention the names of all the participants as co-author of the books. So it's not a book which is published or edited by Tech Forever. It's really a joint work. And of course, we want to give the limelight to the solution providers, so the startups from Tech Forever, but also to put that in perspective from experts, and to really give the maximum of value. The thing is, and another thing is that we want to make this book to be physical, because we want to give the people something that they can touch. That's the result of a work. It's not digital, it's physical. And of course, they will.
Also digital, or just?
And also digital, because the search engines prefer the digital versions. There will be a digital version. As it is a Creative Commons approach, we don't really care if it's digital or physical, but physical is bringing some additional things. I just want to mention that it's going to be physical as well. And the value of this is that the topic that we are on are not changing every 6 months like in some industries. So this book can remain a kind of reference for the years to come. And that's really something that we want to do. So your involvement in this focus group is more than welcome to achieve this common goal that we have together.
You do have a journalist, right? That helps. Sorry, Michael.
No, I wanted to throw out a suggestion that right from now until the end of the program, that there's a competition for a new name for the book, because I think we can do better than the book.
Of course.
And a prize from Group Mutuel for the person who comes up with the best name.
Okay.
No, you pointed right. I mean, no, definitely it was just to illustrate, and that's not.
Yeah, I'm joking, of course. I know it's just a placeholder.
No, it's a good idea. It's always nice to create.
And to answer your question, Martha, definitely we are not professional authors, or maybe some of you, but not all of us. So we will get the assistance from professionals to curate, edit, and publish this book together.
Okay. And whenever you have guidelines for how you would like the material to be submitted, will there be a form, or, what does a journalist recommend? Let us know so that we can circulate the information inside the focus group, and we can look to finding ways of submitting the information in a way that's easier for the journalist to select, organize, or take the next step.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. So we are nearing the close here. We're 5 minutes away. Ksenia is not here, is she? Because Ksenia knew, I think, in the last focus group, she had a kind of a neat thing where you can put some comments in the chat, but don't send them just yet until we tell you. And then apparently they all come through at the same time, and you can kind of see a word drop of comments, if I remember correctly. Is that correct, Nicolas? I think Ksenia was doing that in the last group.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. So could everybody have a try? This is a time to share. Anybody can say any comments, suggestion. We have 5 minutes, there's no rush. And at the same time, if you could put a comment in the chat, but not press send until I tell you. Any other comments, suggestions, or ideas, or what would you like to see from this focus group going forward? This might be a good time to tell us, or of course you can follow up later. Anything else you'd like to see that we haven't discussed or thought of? I think everybody's tired.
So you're going to tell us when to press send?
Yes.
Marta, I'm just wondering whether you plan to do a sort of a survey for the input, so people can also key in their input there. And also, second thing is that for your next focus group, is there anything for people to prepare for the next ones?
Okay, so survey, you mean, do you encourage us doing a survey on this specific focus group? Like, oh, sorry, this specific session?
That's right, to also get some feedback from the participants, and maybe it would be very useful to the other groups.
Yeah. Yeah, happy to circulate a survey on your feedback. And right now, I don't have homework for them to do for the session on the 30th of September, but as we prepare that session, we can get in touch with them to get ready.
Okay.
Thank you, Lan. That's a good suggestion. Okay, I think you can all send, I don't know if this works because I've never done it before, but send your suggestion, send your comment, please. Oh yes, it's all coming through. Thank you for the great brainstorming, fantastic focus group, great section and interaction, insightful discussion, and from me, continue to send suggestions. And thank you to everybody.
Thank you very much, Marta.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marta.
Yeah.
Everyone, it was very good.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Dana. Nice to meet you.